Okay. Say something so I can make sure I can hear you guys.
Hi.
Okay. I'm good.
Making sure with Jeremy, and then we can move forward. Making sure with Jeremy, and then we can move forward. There it goes. Okay, I'm gonna start the meeting. So today is, oh, hold on, he's refreshing it. Now he can't locate us live on YouTube. Oh,
Maybe
man.
it's a full moon.
Yeah.
Is it live?
There's a message up top says it's streaming live now on YouTube.
Yeah, but I don't think he has to copy that link and put it on our website.
Oh.
That's the issue. Okay, now you found it. Link and put it on our website. That's the issue. Okay. All right, so now we're good to go. We're live recording. Okay. And let me put this up so I can read it. Okay, today is April 30th, Thursday, April 30th, 2020. This is a public notice, or this is a work session for the school board of the school board trustees for the school city of East Chicago. The time is now 6:22 p.m. and the following items will be discussed. It will be the Mr. Cunningham contract, updates regarding the school city of East Chicago on COVID-19, and preliminary financial status of the district. Ms. Wright, I will turn it over to you as we start the conversation for Mr. Cunningham's contract.
Yes, Mr. Cunningham is a engineer, and we are asking that Mr. Cunningham inspect the bus barn to make sure that the bus barn is feasible, is operational for us to begin use as soon as possible. So we're asking that Mr. Cunningham come in and just inspect the bus barn. So we asked him for a contract, and he provided us with first a contract, and then he provided us with an amended contract.
So I guess the first thing is the amount that what the contract amount is, because the reason why we called the meeting was there was a conversation with the amount exceeding the 5,000 we had previously discussed at one point. So if you could just go into elaboration in regards to that.
Okay, sure. The first contract that I'm going to, do you want me to share the screen or no?
That's
Sure.
Can you share the screen,
Let's
Mr. Harris?
see.
I'm not sure. Can we?
I can't because I have it on my laptop now.
No, no,
on the
I'm saying it's
desktop.
possible
Oh.
to share the screen. That's okay, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to his contract. I have pulled it up.
Well, while Superintendent Wright is looking for the contract, I can piggyback on her comments, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
If you recall, we talked about this proposal before, and actually the $5,000 figure wasn't a number that was included in that agreement. There was an hourly rate, and we all had a discussion about this and estimated that the total amount of work wouldn't exceed the $5,000. So once we got this new proposal and he fully outlined what all the services are that he would provide, I think that's how we ended up where we are now with the number being 25, because not only is it more services than he anticipated, but it also involves him getting soil borings and some engineering confirmation on the concerns we had about the cracking on the foundation or flooring of the actual bus barn. That's something that he himself wouldn't do out of that figure. Let's say it does go up to 25, which as written, it's an amount not to exceed 25. He would have to pay those engineers and the company who would do the soil boring to confirm the integrity. And I know Trustee Williams particularly had a concern about, those cracks that we're seeing on the surface. That's the reason for that number being a little more than we originally anticipated of 5,000, and actually could be up to 25,000. But Ms. Wright.
Okay, I'm locating it. Here it is, right
Oh,
there.
okay.
Okay.
So it's more so.
Original,
Oh, go ahead.
I think that original was his hourly rate, not knowing in detail that he would have to go in. So the rate was just for him on that.
That's right.
And that's when I think I had made the suggestion not to exceed the $5,000, not knowing any other vendor would be involved in it.
Right. Yeah, his rate is $90 an hour, and there wasn't really anyone else that was involved that we knew of then. And Ms. Simmons is right. Now we have a full picture of exactly what's needed based on him going in and really looking at the building.
Okay.
So my question, I have a question. So with regards to soil borings, wouldn't that be part of the phase 1, phase 2 preliminary studies before they even actually build the building there?
The phase 1 and phase 2 would have been done for the purpose of environmental, and this is being done with the concrete pad in place. And they're studying more the integrity of the concrete that was poured, not so much the testing of the soil that you're talking about in the phase 1 and 2.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. So uploaded, I had the memo and the recommendation, and at the bottom of the memo, it says $25,000. Then he goes in to start discussing the punch list and other closeout requirements and scope of services.
So
So
I have a question with regards to the 25. Now, are you stating that he would be paying the engineers, or are we paying the engineers?
He would pay them out of the 25 that's allotted in this contract. And it's not a flat 25. It's an amount not to exceed 25. He still has to bill his time by the hour and has to bill for the actual time and services of any other engineers or professional services that he gets. And the amount total is not to exceed the 25,000. Here on the page we're looking at now, it shows that it will not exceed 25,000.
So is this the amended contract, or there was another one that
Yes.
came after this?
No, this is the newest. This is the most current version. Yes.
Okay. Now, did the amount go up because we asked for it to be detailed, or is it just regardless, this is what he was gonna do? Do you know?
I think it's because the scope is more detailed, and specifically when we started talking about, hey, we really want to make sure not only, does it look okay for us to move in, but we want to make sure that there are no issues with the roof, which did have some water that came through,
Leakage.
and leakage, yep, and with the concrete pad that had some cracking, that you want to get some specialized, opinions on. So once we added that to the scope, then that of course increased the cost because you've got other people involved at that point.
So are we seeing a breakdown or an estimate of the 25,000, or is this another cap where not to exceed 25,000?
It's not to exceed that figure. I've had conversations with him about what he expects though, in terms of what they may charge for the inspection for the roof and what they may charge for the inspection of the floor and the soil right below it. So he's ballparking 10,000 or less for each of those. So I think that's where that 25 figure comes in, of 15 possibly for his services and that 10 for the rest. So,
And also includes like his clerical staff, blah, blah, blah. That was also on there.
yes.
So
Are
this,
we anticipating this getting this expensive?
No.
Were we or were they? I didn't hear the question.
I don't think we were. Actually, I think what we wanted Mr. Cunningham to do before we started having the leaks, before we seen cracks, is that he'll just do a walkthrough and, to spot check. But after, I think the final walkthrough was done, is when they had did the, seen the cracks. We seen the leak that they fixed twice. And that's when I think it got detailed.
Now,
So-
if we're doing something that's up to $25,000, don't we need to get 3 quotes then from somebody else other than just Mr. Cunningham? Why are we stuck at just having him now that we exceed that $25,000 figure?
Well, I can answer that. We don't have to because we're not exceeding that figure. And if we did, then the issue would be us obtaining additional quotes. But there's a couple of things. One, I think he is already familiar with where we are, and I think we'd be starting from zero if someone else were to come in. But more importantly, I think it's not just him going through a punch list on making sure that we can occupy the bus barn. The other thing he's doing is, and I know he's done it on behalf of the city before in dealing with contractors, he works to get money back from the contract as he goes through the process of going through the punch list. So it's not just a matter of him telling us all the things that are wrong and then say, good luck with it. He also, in addition to identifying what's wrong, he will assist us in negotiating credits on the final payout so that we end up saving money, not just paying him up to $25,000 to tell us what's wrong. There is value there, and it could be considerable value there depending on the credits that we could get back.
I have one question on this. Is he expecting us not to be in the building while he's doing this?
While he's doing going through the punch list?
Yes.
Generally, his opinion is we shouldn't move in until after this gets resolved. But I think that's still up for discussion. That's what his expectation is, though.
Well, I wouldn't think we move in there because I thought they're inspecting the punch list. So why would we move in with that? I mean, this is the thing. Coach Pete brought up a good point in saying that let's get in to that building. And obviously we're still paying rent on a building and we have an empty building that's there. So I think the gist of it is to get in that building as soon as we can. We didn't anticipate this being that costly, especially because we had to go into the detail because of the multiple issues. But I guess we want to get in there. So this is where we're at, kind of, right?
Question, did the city sign off on us entering the building? Did they sign off on the actual construction? And we're hiring Cunningham to do a final walkthrough. Didn't the city's inspectors do final walkthroughs?
The fire inspector did.
Right, but they don't check the punch list.
Yeah, they don't reconcile it with the terms and conditions of the contract.
Right.
So what they're doing is making sure that the code, the
It's safe.
city code is met. And yes, to answer your question, yes, we did get that. We did get the clearance from the city that code is met, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we got everything that we're supposed to get under the terms of the contract.
Okay.
So
So I guess the question to me then, or to whoever brought this up, was whether we can actually at least move into the building as he's doing his inspection. Because that, to me, that would be a question.
Right, but
yeah,
that was what just was brought up, and that's why I said I don't think that we could actually move in because we're actually checking the punch list, which means we can't move in if there's something that's off of the punch list because we have to address that to the core construction, correct?
yeah, I think it would be chaotic if we did try to do that at the same time. And now if there's a portion of it that's a portion of the building that's not an issue and we can do something there, I think that's fine. But since we're talking about the floor and the roof, if there is some repair that needs to be done, we're going to be in our own way trying to address whatever these issues might be. So, while it's probably not the answer we want to hear, probably in our best interest to let this process, run its course and obviously move it along. I mean, I know time is of the essence, but I think we really need to finish this before we move in.
So what's his timeline on finishing this?
Well, it all depends on when he can get the people to come in to do the inspection of the soil and of the concrete slab and of the roof. I don't think we're talking about more than 3 weeks though. I mean, I think it's something that can happen relatively quickly.
So this contract is going to be on our agenda for Monday, right?
Yeah,
We
this
have to-
isn't something to be approved now, right? This is just for discussion.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess long term, we're thinking this is the best bet because we wanted it to be in extreme detail because it's a new building. We had issues. And your recommendation, Jewel, with this, what are you thinking?
I recommend we do it. Now, the part that's up to you is whether or not you're comfortable going up to 25. That's entirely up to you all. I mean, if you gave me instruction to go back to them and say, hey, we really don't want to, we weren't anticipating spending that much, we'd rather only spend this number, then we go back and that's what we say. It's up to you. But I think everybody was already in agreement that we should do this.
Right.
And the thought at the time was that it would be 5,000. Now we know to get everything we want is 25. You all as a body just need to determine if you're comfortable with that number or not. And if not, that means you would need to scale back some of the scope of work and we'd have to keep going back and forth until we got to the number that you as a board felt more comfortable with.
Mhm.
So
Hey,
that's up to
Leela,
you
this
all.
question is for Leela. Leela, how do you believe that we can afford this 25,000 additional to actually finish paying off the contractor?
We have the funds to cover it because there's still some left in the bond there. My concern is us not being able to get into it right away. That's my biggest concern, but we do have the funds that's left in that bond to continue this.
And we would, after he completes the inspection, Core would have to reimburse us for some things that they did not do correctly. Am I correct?
That's the
Or
idea.
things, yeah.
That's the idea. Yes, that's the idea.
So you could always go back and let him know, let's say we want to stay in a 5,000 range, right? Or 10,000 range. He will then let you know what he would be inspecting from that, correct?
Yeah, so I think the difference, if we were to go back to that 5,000 figure, I think we're going to get his inspection and we're going to get a list from him of what's wrong.
Mhm.
And that's probably about it. I think with that 25 figure or somewhere in that ballpark, you kind of get his full service where he's going to bring other professionals in to certify the integrity of the roof and the floor. He's going to do the negotiation with Core to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that they abide by the particular scope of that's contained in the contract. And the benefit for him versus, let's say, somebody like me is that they speak the same language. You know,
Right.
because he's an engineer and they could be arguing over construction related issues, that's where his benefit comes in. So.
And
you
I
know, it's
guess
just-
I'm looking to you and to Leela really in regards to this, because again, the board was comfortable with getting a detailed, extremely detailed process for Mr. Cunningham done, right? But I know what you guys have dealt with and with core and how everything hasn't been, I guess, we had to go back with core a couple of times for things, and the changes have been many. So it's more so I feel like Leela, you know, you've dealt with them the most. What are we thinking? You know,
I guess the biggest concern came up when we started getting the change orders left and right after I took over in August for this position. So, and at that time, we were working with the city and also Mr. Cunningham coming in on that one. But that was because he was working with the city and we were asking the city to do something for us. I guess when I asked for him to do the inspection, I was not thinking on that we have to go and get extra engineers out because I don't know nothing. So I think I was just looking for him to do the walkthrough. But again, I don't know nothing about construction. I couldn't tell you if that floor will fall in today or tomorrow. I can walk through and see the crack. That's it. So in all, I do not want School City to be left with a building that will not last no more than 5 years. The purpose of building that building was to have that building for anything that if we needed to do collateral, anything, if anything happened to our finance. If we got a building that's not going to be worth what we pay for it, we got a problem.
So can I give an example on that? One of the things that we discovered, or Mr. Cunningham discovered in looking at this particular building is Core decided to use a technology for the flooring that we have the cracks in, where instead of reinforcing the concrete with rebar, it's reinforced with a mesh. And the question is whether or not that mesh ensures that the integrity of that concrete is strong enough or not. Obviously they thought so, and that's why they decided to use it. But what would be typical is to use rebar. So that's something that we've discovered in the process of Mr. Cunningham taking a look at it, is he learned that. That's what triggered his suggestion of, hey, we need to get that tested, because by him looking at it, all he can do is say, hey, I've got some concern about the mesh and the weight of the vehicles you're going to have on here, but he doesn't know that that's a problem or not. You get the test, you know for certain, because it knows, the test will tell you whether or not it can bear the weight that we need or not. His eye test isn't going to do that. So that's kind of how this came up after the initial proposal. So I think even up to 25, it's well worth it, because otherwise you could end up with a problem later on down the road with huge cracks, the floor sagging. I'm not saying it will happen, but it's good to know now whether you have an issue or not. And we still have the contractor available to hold them accountable for it versus trying to do something about it a year from now.
and where would the money come to pay for this from, Leela?
It would come out of the SS that's from the actual GO bond that we went out for.
Well, we didn't go out for a geo bond on this particular project. This was transportation money, right?
No.
Yes.
Initially?
Yes.
Some of it.
Well, no,
I'm sorry, I'm hearing yeses, I'm hearing no's. What's going on?
no, the last GO bond, if you remember, that's what the purpose of that last GO bond was for. To replace the money back into transportation, because it was an operation fund and not just transportation fund at the time.
We was mad about this from the very beginning, because we were told in the very beginning when our past superintendent was here, that it was all coming from transportation. But I understand it has changed since her departure. But in the very beginning, we were told that the money had to be spent because it was sitting in transportation for a long period of time now.
Okay, prior to us the first time when we went out, prior to they going to two funds, which was the education and operation fund, there was six point something million sitting in transportation. That there, the state looks at and say that, well, we're a healthy district, and that accounts for us losing some funds in our levy, some percentages in our levy. So that was the purpose of actually really going out to build a transportation building at that time, is to kind of deplete the funds. So we did have something that we owned, and that we would deplete the funds and we would not take a hit in the percentage of our levy going out to get taxes, property taxes. So as we went along and we moved to the operation fund, and operation fund now holds a lot more than it did before, that's when we decided to go out for the GEO bond, and it took the GEO bond to take some of the pressure off of the operation fund.
Understood.
Do you have any more questions or comments, concerns on that item?
The only thing I'll add is that if you do have any concerns about the cost, I have time between now and the next board meeting to deal with it. So if there are some concerns that we should try to have that number, negotiate that number more, just tell me, I'll do that. It's up to you.
I mean, I guess you
I
should
do got one question.
go ahead, Joelle.
Okay. With the attorney, whatever stipulated in the contract with regards to the flooring, is there a way you can bring that up, and I can maybe call you later to see exactly what it, because the mesh, it's that does sound like a concern. And if that's what was agreed upon initially, I like to know.
So that's a good question. So I had this conversation with him, and I said, he has developed a preliminary punch list of some of the things that he's going to be taking a look at. And what I asked him to do was to modify that punch list a little bit. And he has it in draft form right now that he provided to us. But I want to make sure that there is an additional column on the punch list that shows what's being inspected and tie it back to a specific citation in the contract itself, so that we can show, hey, the specs called for this in terms of the concrete, and this in terms of lighting, and this in terms of roofing, so that we're not searching for, we're not searching to make an argument about certain areas that are defective. We can cite specifically to the contractual provision and hold their feet to the fire. So if approved, or when approved, he is going to complete that punch list to tie the issues that we've got, like the mesh that was used in the concrete, to what's in the contract. That's the whole idea. So yeah, that would definitely happen.
And Jewel, is there anything on the document that he sent that maybe we could forego, and maybe, or talk to him about reducing the price, seeing as we don't want to, we didn't expect this large of an amount, and maybe we could forego some items so that possibly go down, or just
we can
negotiate something like that with him.
All of it's negotiable at this point. Yeah, whatever. If you want to see if there's anything here that's a little much, or maybe we're being a little too careful in certain areas, we could try to scale that. I don't think though that you want to. I don't think that you want to scale back though on the flooring or on the roof though, because those are so important. Right?
No, I understand. This is a way to save some money,
Trustee Williams, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Looking at this contract and the new version that I've seen of it, one particular part I know you can scale back on, and that's that fire alarm. That fire alarm was not done by Core. So that there was done by a contractor that we actually hired, and we have a warranty on that. That's the one thing I did see with the second copy that I received.
Oh, good. So maybe Ms. Simmons and I can look through this a little bit more, and maybe there's some other areas like that we can carve out, because they're not going to be subject to a dispute with Core anyway.
Yeah, and there's some utilities on this list that was not done by Core, that was done by an outside contractor also on the school city.
I'm sorry, Leila, excuse me. Can Can I ask who, Jewel, are you the point person for Mr. Cunningham, or you just seen the contract? Who is that?
I just saw it today, and in fact, I think it's actually Dr. Mitchell's the main one that's been talking to him. He's talked to him a lot more than I have. But the document that we're looking at right now, we got this today. So it's not like something that's been going on for a long time. Ms. Wright and myself got this sent to us by Dr. Mitchell today.
Okay, and see, I think that's where the red flags that came to me, or when we discussing this and when I brought it up in the very beginning, is the fact that it was Mr. Mitchell said that, or told Ms. Wright, and Ms. Wright, conversed that to us before, that Marlon Mitchell was concerned about the bus barn, that he don't believe that we got our money's worth. And if he's that point person with Mr. Mitchell, I don't know if he could have been here or not, but that should be a person that we actually have a discussion with or talk to in regards to it. Because for one, he's the one that raised the red flags about the flooring and the roofing in the very beginning about the leakage. And if Leela has some insight on the things that we can scale back on, I just don't want, at this point, we're already not in a building and we're paying for a building. I don't want it to a point where now we're going to take another week to go through this punch list to find out what not needs to be discussed, as well as it sets us back another 3 weeks after the inspection, and we still not in there in the next 6 weeks or so. You see what I mean? But do that make sense?
It makes sense. So would you like for me to ask Mr. Mitchell if he can join the work session or no?
Oh, no. I just was wondering, when I'm not a texter, I'm not a real huge texter, but I do read y'all texts when they come through. And when Vanessa, when she said that this was going to be the discussion, I just was wondering who was the person when Leela was like, is the inspection done? So if the inspection wasn't done and she was the one that got the contract with Mr. Cunningham, I just didn't know who was the person, if we had questions, who to go to in regards to it. And I see Jewel was pretty much going through the contract. That's why I asked if he was the point person.
Yeah, it's really Dr. Mitchell's been the one dealing directly with Mr. Cunningham. And
okay,
I'm just looking at my email, seeing the documents as they come through.
Because Mr. Cunningham works for the city too, right?
Yes, he works for the city too.
So this is going to be outside of his city work.
Correct. That's why it's subject to a contract. Now, it didn't originally start out that way. Obviously, it started out before we had a sewer issue. Yeah, it was a sewer issue we were having with the city, and he was going to look at something, and it was just, well, you look at this for us, and it was more than what he originally thought. And he said, well, I would actually have to charge you if I'm going to devote that much time and attention to a project this big. Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know if us as a board thought that we were going to exceed or go to this magnitude of it. Yes, we want to make sure that we have a safe building, but can we cover the cost?
So why don't we do this?
Do it.
Yeah, I think we can cover the cost, but I do also think, and not to interrupt you, Ms. Simmons, but Ms. Simmons and I can look at this to see that there's not anything in here that's unnecessary, because she has more background in it than I do. And then we could also have Dr. Mitchell at the meeting where you're going to consider it for a vote. So I don't think we'll lose any time in doing that, because it's not subject to approval until our next regular meeting anyway. So that'll allow us to clean up, some of the issues in the scope. It may have an impact on the cost. And when you see this issue again, it'll be closer to final form and ready for you to consider for an actual vote. Today, being just a work session, is for us to do exactly what we're doing now, is to point out all the things that are a problem or wrong or go in a different direction. That's exactly what we should be doing right now. So.
Okay. So, and also too, if I can add just one item, if we know the floors are cracked, why would we want to inspect it if we can physically see that it's cracked? Is there something that we can do legally to let core construction come in to say, hey, this floor is cracked, and we haven't even moved in yet?
Yeah, because there is such a thing as surface cracks in flooring like this. And we have to make sure that we have a study to back it up to show that they're not just surface cracks, but they're cracks that affect the integrity of the actual flooring, and that they're not suitable for vehicles of our weight. And it can't just be our word saying that. The study is going to justify that, taking that position, if that's even the case.
Okay.
Can I ask also, I don't know if this was for Mrs. Wright or Leela in regards to, or you, Jewel. I remember when Core Construction came to meet with us, the three gentlemen, we never had a follow-up meeting with them to explain that punch list of things that we found prior to this. Do you think that is necessary at this point? I know we can't really meet with them, but did that just fall through the cracks because we just was ready to get rid of Core, or let that be and we go through the process of having some outside to inspect the building?
Well, Core did come in and they completed most of the things on the punch list. I believe that was probably in February, Leela. So they came in, we had a meeting with them. It must have been, it was January, February. Yeah, they came in and they had a very detailed explanation of how they prepared those punch items on the punch list. And I
Well,
believe if I
go ahead. Sorry, I was interrupting. I was just going to say, if memory serves me right, that punch list was as a result of the fire inspection report. And that was those punch list items. And you're right, they did address those. And what we're looking at now is punch list items that are based upon the terms and conditions of the contract, not the problems, the code problems that the fire inspector found. That was my understanding.
But, you know, and the thing about it is that when you're building any building in the city of East Chicago, they go through series of meetings. They have their engineers, they have their planning department, their zoning administration, and they basically sort of go through all this, making sure that we're getting the right specs that complies with the city of East Chicago's code. Now, are you saying that this is not the case in terms of what the city has approved or has released to what we're currently dealing with now?
Yeah, I'm saying it's different. I'm saying that the city inspected it solely for the purpose of making sure that the building complies with city codes, not to confirm that Core gave us everything that's included in the contract. Like, the city could care less about what's in our contract with Core. The only thing they looked at is, does this building comply with city code? So yeah, it is kind of two different things. And that original punch list that we looked at, and that the three guys from Core came in and talked to us about, were concerns related to occupancy and city code related issues. And now we're looking more at contract compliance. And the reason we went that way is because I think we had several board members that had that concern, that are we getting everything we were supposed to get? And I think that concern was raised by the number of change orders we got along the way. So.
So to finalize, to sum up, basically you, Leela, and I guess Dr. Mitchell are going to look into seeing if we could minimize some of the items on the contract, and then seeing if we can change the pricing, hopefully lower it. Is that where we're coming? Is that what we're doing?
Sounds like to me, and this is just from listening to Jewel, the biggest part of this pricing, it sounds like the $10,000 actually to get the concrete tested.
It is.
Am I listening to this correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So what we're going to have to do,
we're $10. We're looking for the other 10,000.
right? We're looking for the other 15,000. So what is basically is going to, we'll cut some of the stuff out of here that I know outside contractors did. And I think this is going to come down to his power.
Okay.
Okay.
Then you guys will just update us. So it won't be on the next meeting. It just won't, we're on our meeting, you'll update to vote. It's going to change the contract, so it won't be on the next meeting. I know we don't want to.
Wouldn't it be on next meeting?
I think you want it on the next meeting.
We want it on the next meeting, but wouldn't it be a change to hopefully a change to the amount and like what
Yeah.
the scope of the contract would be? So we
Yes.
would just have to amend it? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
So basically, Joel, this is what I'm looking at here. So we know that the one test is probably gonna cost us $10,000.
Mhm.
So the contract now says up to $25,000.
Right.
So we can bring the contract down to say up to $20,000. It's an up to amount that really counts, that it will not exceed that amount that the board does not know about.
Right.
That's my thinking of this whole situation. And the other 15,000 is basically if he was going to bring any other contractors in, but the only one I'm hearing is because of the flooring of the
And the roof.
oh,
The roo-
I'm sorry,
And
in
the
the
roof
roof.
out of
I
that
did not.
15, yes. Mhm.
Okay, okay.
So in the original, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, in the original contract, and the blueprint, they assured, Trustee Williams, you remember? They assured us about the concrete and the flooring, remember?
Mhm.
And they said, now, just asking, if we go back to that contract, the original contract, did they take it upon themselves to do the mesh as opposed to the other alternative or whatever you called it, Jewel? Or was that a part of that contract, just using the mesh? Was it their decision to do that?
I think that's what Mr. Cunningham is trying to figure out by looking at all the prior documents as to whether or not that was in the original scope of work or whether it was the subject of a change order in some way, or it's not documented anywhere and they just decided to cut a corner. I don't know. I don't know one way or the other, but that's exactly what he's looking for. And if it turns out that they did cut a corner or that there's an issue, part of this process is to negotiate a credit for that. And that's a part we're not really talking a lot about, but there could be some money coming back, on this too, so.
Let's move
So,
forward
but-
then. Let's move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. Because we want to make sure that, and also too, like what I mentioned earlier in terms of the actual contract, if it stated mesh, that's a different story. But if it stated the rebars and things like that prior to the cement, and now we're talking, they basically did one on us. So I can see that being a concern. So.
Yep.
Any other questions, concerns? Ms. Wright, you want to go to the second item?
Okay, second item would be preliminary preliminary finances. So Leila and I, over the last 2 weeks, have met with all departments, and we have taken a look at the budget amount for each department. And we met with the directors, and we were asking them, where do you see where we can make some cuts at, or where are we overspending? And so we kind of have an idea of our efficiency for each program. So we're going to move forward and present you all with a plan. But we have met with each department, and we know the cost that it takes to run each department.
Are we expecting for finances to not be the same for the upcoming year because of this pandemic?
Absolutely, absolutely. So today, there was a conference today discussing pretty much finances. And in a very nice way, what they said was, if we just flatlined our budget, or if districts just flatline their budget, that's a victory. So the way I took it was that we're going to take a hit. Now, what they told us is that we're good up until June 30th, 2020, because that money is already allowed for.
Right.
They cannot make a prediction until September, August, or September, when the new revenue comes in. But here's what happens. Half of the school budget or the tuition budget comes from sales taxes. So if this have been shut down for 2.5 months, then those sales taxes and those income taxes will be greatly impacted. So in a very nice way, they're telling us that, we need to start looking at cuts. They reiterated 2 or 3 times that we need to revise our RIF notices to make sure that we are protected in the event that, you know, we're going to see a reduction in our budget. Although the state of Indiana has a surplus, I think maybe a $1.4 billion surplus, they told us don't count on that because it's going to go fast. They also, they were asking about, they stated that next year we're going to probably have some parents that may say, well, you know what? I'm going to keep my kid at home, or my kid is going to go to a virtual school. So they was asking if the state would hold us harmless on ADM count, but they said highly unlikely because the state says the money follows the kid. So we have some legislators that's in Indianapolis now trying to hold us harmless for funding for parents who may not want to send their kids to school in the event that we go back to school in the fall. They was asking, should superintendents be sending out RIF notices? They recommended that we follow the guidelines. Even if we don't have to RIF, at least we are protected. That's the guidance from the state, not from Ms. Wright, the guidance from the state. That was pretty much it. But yes, we're expected to see our budget just decrease.
Ms. Wright, you said something about kids going to virtual school. Is there a possibility? I mean, and I don't know what we're trying to do for next year, but if we had some type of virtual school or in our building, will we still be able to get the money for that? Like, let's say I don't want my child to go back to school. I don't want to send them to virtual school, but I'd be okay with them looking and, you know, seeing the classroom. Is that a thought?
Oh, absolutely. I've already been talking about that. I know Hammond has a virtual school, and if we have our own virtual school, the money. But if our kids do not return to school to Chicago, then we lose that money.
Okay.
Because the money follows the kid. So that's something that we're definitely going to be working on, our own school city Cardinal virtual school, but absolutely. So
And with the new regulations of the estimate of ADM that's available now, we also need to put those students in there because they are asking about the non-virtual and the virtual for the estimates of the ADM that we need to report.
right.
So I'm recommending that we just hold like a work session and to discuss the budget cuts. And if we have to do any type of department restructuring because of what we could possibly lose in funding, just so that we could understand what will be happening for the upcoming year.
Right. They also talked about local property taxes because they, you know, extended the local property taxes. So normally, whenever we collect taxes in April, then that's going to be pushed back. So where the normal property taxes that we normally get, you know, in April, May, that's going to be pushed further. So local property taxes will be affected also, because once again, if people are not working and they have lost their jobs, they can't pay their property taxes. So that's another avenue that we have to look at. So we have to look at local property taxes, and then we're going to have to also take a look at the state tuition that the state normally gives us in August.
Yeah, I believe that's been pushed back to July.
Because they extended the property tax deadline.
So then that means May is pushed back to July, and November would be pushed, what, to January?
Possibly.
They
I
haven't
just
made a
know about the
decision.
spring. I just know about the spring taxes.
Okay.
So then would any of these decisions for restructuring be made prior to the school opening?
Oh, absolutely. We hope so. Yes.
So then we would need to have a discussion regarding that regardless.
Right.
Okay.
Right, because if we're going to RIF teachers, which I'm thinking that we won't, I don't know. We just have to take a closer look. We have to let those teachers know by July 1st.
Okay.
Otherwise, we have to keep them. So absolutely, before the beginning of the next
So
year.
then you'll let us know when we need to have a work session when you have figures, basically.
Oh yes, probably within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to move on this. Don't you agree, Leila? Leila and I already talked about this earlier, so we have to move on this. We can't wait. Besides, it's not to you know, to let people know that we may possibly have to RIF them. So we kind of want to, you know, jump on it pretty early. Not to say that we're saying we have to, but we just want to make sure that the district is protected, to make sure that, you know, we're in sound financial status.
We, if we're considering riffing or any part of restructuring any department, we have to do it within the next 2 months. Because I did get an email about changing my appropriations, and I don't want to wait till the end of the year again to change the appropriations. So we will have to do it within the next 2 months. And also, our budget, we always come under our budget for a year. So we'll just be moving things around to make sure that we are going to have that same surplus of that 3 months salary that I have built up now.
Okay.
Any other questions about the budget? But we're just kind of like a wait and see now, but I think they're kind of giving us a warning of what's going to happen in a very nice way without putting fear in our hearts. I think they're kind of, you know, letting us know what's going to come down the pipe, because we went through this in 2008 with the housing market, and then we had these budget rules in 2012. So those we kind of predicted, but here, COVID-19, a pandemic, this was something that just caught us totally off guard. So believe it or not, that's why I believe that many of the states are pushing for businesses to reopen, because they understand the financial status that it's going to put. So that's another reason. It's definitely going to affect the schools.
Okay, is there any way we can get some sort of a forecast from Cinder and companies to kind of tell us exactly how much we're going to be losing, or are we just guesstimating here based on who? The Department of Education, or who's telling us this?
It's the Department of Education. They can't really tell us how much. They said the new revenue will be out in August and September. So right now, the only thing we can say right now, up until June 30th, that's the end of our school year or fiscal year. Up until June 30th, we're good. Right after then, they don't know. They don't know what the forecast is going to be, because it all depends on what the state, how much the state is going to allot for their education budget.
And while we have a contract with Sunder and Company, I mean, we have a CFO that has all that information too. Like, I think maybe Leila, if you already have that, if you can send that out to all of us, but I think minimizing the cost of everything is where we're at now. By bringing them in, we'll have to pay them even more money, correct?
Sunder and Company does a monthly update on our finances, and that's just a spreadsheet that they provide to us. So I have not sent them over March numbers, so that's the reason I don't have the update as of today on that.
No,
Okay,
these March numbers are you're calculating these March numbers sort of based on what? I know that there's no kids in the schools, but we've approved March numbers last year, right? We approved pretty much. So are we looking at September's budget? Are we looking at the new school year's budget, and that's why you want to RIF? Or so I need to know what data are we using to RIF anybody for September? If we're thinking of going back, we may go back as regular schedule. We don't know.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
So is this just a protection with regards to? Okay. So
right now, so Joel, what they're saying to us for of the month of April, we're good. For the month of May, we're good. For the month of June, we're good. We just don't know, and they don't know. They don't know what's going to happen in August and September, because we haven't received the new revenues. But what they're telling us is just in the event that in August and September, we just hypothetically, we lose $2 million, just hypothetically. If we have not protected ourselves financially by potentially rifting a few people. Well, maybe not the word rift, but whatever you all call it, do not return or not guarantee. What is that called, Jewel?
What's that? Are you talking about with the contract, or it all depends on what the employee or category you're talking about? Like a non-renew?
Leela told me that earlier. What is it called? It's not called a rift, Leela. It's called a
It's a non-renewal that we do on at the end of the school year.
Okay, so they're saying that there's no guarantees. We don't know, but what they're saying is just to make sure that we protect the district. We need to follow guidelines for rifting in the event that we have to. Not saying that we will, but in the event. So right, Joel, it's just a protection. We don't know yet, but we don't know until we know. So we do nothing. And then, our budget comes in $2 million short, then we're $2 million short, but we have a budget that calls for an extra $2 million. So where does $2 million come from? So of course we would take the guidance from, we would just provide you all with the recommendation and you all will decide on, how we proceed. But they're just putting us on notice. It's just a notice, people. It's not, they're not telling us exactly what's going to happen, but we kind of foresee it happening.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else you want to say, Leela?
Now, one more question, Ms. Wright. Are you talking on just teachers, or what are we talking about when you mentioned rifts? Are we only looking at? I'm sorry?
I would say across the board.
Across the board? Okay.
Now, I met with the elementary principals yesterday. The elementary schools, we're pretty good. We're pretty, the ratio of teachers to students is about 22-1, which is, that's a good ratio in the elementary schools. So we know what the ratios and the numbers look like at the elementary schools. However, I haven't, taken a look at the middle school and the high school. But when we start looking at rifting of teachers, I just think that the ratio of teachers to kids is very important because of course we don't want 35 kids in the classroom. And then at the same time, we don't want 12 kids in the classroom. So then that's when we have to look at the teacher-student ratio.
Okay, be good.
Okay.
Question?
Next, COVID-19. Jennifer McCormick has once again stated that schools will be absolutely closed until June 30th, which means that no instruction can take place. Summer school we're going to offer summer school at the high school only for our freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors who may need a few classes to graduate. And summer school will be offered once again as e-learning because students are not allowed inside of the buildings. No one is allowed inside of the buildings. In the superintendent's forums that I've been involved in, we're all looking at plan A and B, some plans, some different options of what school will look like. If school is open in the fall, we have to have some options. If we still have social distancing, how would that look? Maybe we might have to entertain the thought of A-B schedule. We have to look at different procedures for kids on a bus. If you have 60 kids on the bus, I mean, of course you can't practice social distancing on the bus. So there's several things we need to look at. So we are meeting with the superintendent's forum at least every other week to discuss those issues. And our main thing is what will school look like, even if, we can go back in the fall. And if we can't go back in the fall, then we need to also start talking about e-learning and make sure that we tweak that a little bit more. So right now, everyone is just trying to play the wait and see game. What's going to happen? We don't know. But we're looking at options of what's going to happen and possibly, what are the options if A, school opens, and B, if school doesn't. Yeah.
I just wanted to discuss commencement for our seniors and as well as a promotional program or promotional for the elementary, sixth graders going to seventh grade and eighth graders going to the high school. I know we've been in meetings with with Mr. Lane, the senior class, but I want the board to know kind of what's plans are going on. Just brief them.
So I talked to at our admins meeting, I informed the principals that, of course, we wanted our sixth graders going into seventh graders to have a ceremony, and our eighth graders going into ninth grade to have a ceremony. So they're going to get back with me next week and tell me what their plans are. But of course, we know that it definitely can't be a brick and mortar issue. So maybe they would try to do something virtually, but they are planning a commencement ceremony or continuation ceremony for the sixth graders and the eighth graders.
And then for seniors, there's different options that we're trying to put out. So I know, and just a FYI, because I know Ms. Wright said that she told different schools that were adopting the schools. I don't know if that's why Mr. Lane invited me onto the committee, but I want all of us to know, because so you could reach out to your schools and kind of get on them to make sure they have something going on for like the promotion ceremonies. And I know what we're talking about for the graduation is different options of something being live streamed, yet we wanted something still there, something in the cars. So Ms. Wright, I think you could better explain what the options are as of right now.
Okay, we have two options now. On the pre-planned graduation date was June 7th. So we still want our students to do something for June 7th. So it's two plans on the two plans in the making. One is that the students stay in the car and we decorate Central, and the staff stands outside and 6 feet apart, of course. And we congratulate the kids as they drive past, and we give them a fake diploma, and then they'll get their real diploma when they come back into the buildings. When they make an appointment to come back into the buildings. That's one option. I think it was posted on Facebook. It was kind of cool. The kids are allowed to ride in the car with their parents. They just drive up. We say congratulations, and they pick up their full diploma, and then they drive off. That's one option. The second option was we decorate the gym like we would normally decorate it for a graduation, and we schedule the kids to come in. The kids come in, walk across the stage, get their diploma, and the only people who are allowed in the gym are their family members. So of course they will practice social distancing. The parents can get a chance to take pictures of their kids crossing the stage. That's the second option. The virtual graduation, I don't think that, they like that. So I think those are probably the main two options. Then we have the city parade, which is going to be huge for the whole entire city on May 28th. The fire truck, the police department, they're going to drive through the entire city of East Chicago. And we're asking that every student in East Chicago decorate their yard, their house, and as the parade comes through, we'll wave at them and wish them a great summer, because that will be their last day of school. So that's going to take place for everyone in the city, every kid in the city. It's just not the school city of East Chicago kids, but it's every kid in the city. Let's see.
And we're taking the minibuses and the actual buses, decorating those too. And you said every school is going to have two cars to represent that school.
Right. School City of East Chicago. Yeah, School City of East Chicago students.
Okay.
Then next Friday, we are delivering banners and yard signs. Oh, go ahead, Leila.
Quick question.
Yes.
When will y'all know if y'all going to use that gym? Because that scoreboard is scheduled to be put up in mid-May. So I really need to know when y'all planning on deciding if you're going to use the gym.
So how long would the okay, I'll let you know. I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we got to get on it, right? This Friday, we have banners personally made for every senior. And we're going to use the school buses, and we're going to personally deliver those banners to all the kids so they can put them in their front yard. So yeah, that's something we're doing special for our seniors. Did I miss anything, Vanessa? I think that was it.
We did discuss t-shirts, but I guess that's
Another time, right?
we have to ask Leela, make sure it's okay.
Okay.
T-shirts
What about some sort of video of all the seniors on it with some music, and is there something like that we can probably maybe even post on our website?
So Joelle, I know when we were dropping off the signs, we're proposing to have like a balloon with the sign, and then the senior would be like, say something like a wish to our underclassmen, or like they're feeling or something, like maybe we'll have like a certain theme for them to decide to put on a video, and then from there they could release their balloon, as well as we could put their video, their montage all together. And then I know Miss Alexander had talked about taking the drone to go capture the video, the windows, the balloons going up as well. So that's in the works. I know something like that's gonna happen. It's just exactly what it's gonna look like. I don't think that's happened yet. And I know the teachers are working on something right now as a gift to the seniors, where the teachers are all supposed to be sending like a message to seniors as we speak.
We also have the top 20 being planned. The top 20 is the top 20 students of the class of 2020 that's being planned. Mr. Lane is also organizing that. That's also going to be a virtual affair. So we're trying to make sure that our seniors is engaged as in many activities as possible, but everything has to be done virtually. So,
they're also doing adopt a senior. So teachers are actually adopting seniors currently, and then we're kind of going to we're mocking what our fellow schools are doing, where we let alumni actually adopt a senior too. So I know seniors right now, they're putting a lot of their wants on Amazon or whatever to decorate their dorm when they go off in the fall, if they go off in the fall. So then people could just sponsor them in any way or possible. Like I know the teachers right now are even paying some of the caps and gown money that they have left, or their outfit that they pay for. But then we just wanted to make it a little bit broader to let more people do it. I'm sure Jules going to get involved because of the fact that we're probably going to put it on Facebook just like the other schools have done. But I guess that's a consent, or we make the page, and we're thinking parents could be the ones to decide whether or not they want to put their child on there, not us actually doing it.
That makes sense.
I actually think that form is filled out during registration.
Right. I mean, we just got to go back and
it is.
Okay.
It is. Yes. And that is it as far as updates. School City of East Chicago.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, did everybody? Well, I just have a question. Well, it's not really a question. Did everybody receive my email?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you want us to? Oh, hey Diane, did you want us to respond to the email, or
wanted your input in it?
Oh, okay.
If you had any suggestions,
I'll make sure.
I liked it.
I liked it.
Yeah, I thought
and
it was
I
good.
sent it to Coach
I agree.
Pete and to Jawan. Did you guys get that email from her?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's from us, the school board.
And then that's something that would go out to teachers is what you're asking.
Yeah, kind of, they're our frontliners,
Yeah, cheering them on. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
You can get we can make labels in the business office.
Okay, thank you.
Especially for Teachers Appreciation Week that's coming up, right?
Next week.
Yes.
Is that all? Everyone, anything else? All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on again.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
We'll talk to you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for assisting me with this.
No problem.
So how do I log off this thing?
Just go to the,
Do a hard reset.
at the right hand, there should be an end meeting. Actually, you don't even have to. I'm gonna do it for you. Bye.